Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Hello and welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another live broadcast. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And this evening, we are picking up our introspection into the Illuminati Secret Covenant and Protocols. Again, joined by my son, Justin James. And tonight, our focus, or at least the beginning of the study, will be on the assault on religion, which is protocol number 14. Justin, are you there, son?
I am. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be back with you all. We are going to be starting with Protocol 13 tonight, actually. And
13,
but
okay.
the headliner, of course, is the assault on religion. It's actually a relatively short protocol that we will get into a little bit later, and I have to apologize ahead of time because I'm a little under the weather. Probably sound like my dad did last week because I think I got whatever he got.
I'm
But
so sorry, son.
it might just be allergies, honestly. It's nothing
Yeah,
that bad, but I did see news that we're now in a triple demic, I think is what they call it. Triple demic with the flu and COVID and RSV now. So a lot of stuff going around, but you know, keep getting your sunshine, eat a healthy diet, drink water, and get some
right,
exercise. Should be fun.
right. Yeah, it is unusual in that uh, last week we had temperatures near freezing, which it's usually like 70 degrees here in Georgia, but we set some kind of record for the earliest freeze going back to even like World War I or thereabouts. And so strange weather, definitely the cold, I think affected a lot of people. But yeah, I'm glad you're, not as bad as I was, and hoping that the whole family is able to get over everything and get back to, normal routine and life. And so, how is everybody else?
Yeah, it's been toughest on the kids, definitely. But
Oh,
yeah, that's how it is with kids. They can't really
yeah,
cough and blow their
right,
nose. Well, I guess
right.
older kids can, but not babies.
Hmm.
Been really rough just comforting them and getting them to sleep and eat has been
Yes, yes,
difficult. Joy is an all-star mom and also has a really great
certainly.
immune system and no allergies.
Right.
So
Hmm.
she's been perfectly fine through the whole thing.
That's good. That's good.
Praise. Yeah, we're
Yes.
very grateful.
Oh, good, good. And this will help their immunity to get stronger and stronger as well. So, but yeah, I hate that y'all are going through what you're going through, but at least the weather is warming up and returning back to normal. So that's good. But yes, let us go ahead and get into it. You said protocol number 13. Okay, yeah, that's where I had us ending as well. Um, I'll start off since you're, a little bit touch with, just your sound and your breathing and all. So, Protocol 13, distractions. The need for daily bread forces the Goyim to keep silence and be our humble servants. Agents taken on to our press from among the Goyim will, at our orders, discuss anything which is inconvenient for us to issue directly in official documents. And we, meanwhile, quietly, amid the din of the discussion, so raised, shall simply take and carry through such measures as we wish, and then offer them to the public as an accomplished fact. No one will dare to demand the abrogation of a matter once settled, all the more so as it will be represented as an improvement. And immediately, the press will distract the current of thought towards new questions. Have we not trained people always to be seeking something new? Into the discussions of these new questions will throw themselves those of the brainless dispensers of fortunes who are not able even now to understand that they have not the remotest conception about the matters which they undertake to discuss. Questions of the political are unattainable for any save those who have guided it already for many ages, the creators. From all this, you will see that in seeming the opinion of the mob, we are only facilitating the working of our machinery. And you may remark that it is not for actions, but for words issued by us on this or that question that we seem to seek approval. We are constantly making public declaration that we are guided in all our undertakings by the hope, joined to the conviction that we are serving the common weal. Number 3, in order to distract people who may be too troublesome from discussions of questions of the political, we are now putting forward what we allege to be new questions of the political, namely questions of industry. In this sphere, let them discuss themselves silly. The masses are agreed to remain inactive, to take a rest from what they suppose to be political, which we train them to in order to use them as a means of combating the Goy governments. Only on conditions of being found new employments in which we are prescribing them something that looks like the same political object, in order that the masses themselves may not guess what they are about. We further distract them from with amusements, games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. And soon we shall begin through the press to propose competitions in art, in sport, of all kinds. And these interests will finally distract their minds from questions in which we should find ourselves compelled to oppose them, growing more and more disaccustomed to reflect and form any opinions of their own. People will begin to talk in the same tone as we, because we alone shall be offering them new directions for thought, of course, through such persons as will not be suspected of solidarity with us. I'll make a comment here because we see that in every season of the year there is some sport that takes and consumes the focus of the masses. And not that, I am a hater of sports or, against that in any manner. I just, know that according to the protocols and to um, the focus of their efforts, that a large part of the entertainment, even going back to Rome and the Colosseums and the blood sports, that the gladiator style um, competition of pitting man against man, or even now woman against woman in the different sports and leagues and uh, all the different kind of interactive engagements that they have amongst individuals and teams, the different competitions, even the every 4 years of the Olympics, and now we also have the as far as the soccer, the World Cup, and alternating the winter and the summer sports. A lot of that again is to keep the masses from being able to entertain or focus on the larger questions of who is ruling over and how they are ruling over and in which manner they are directing the fate and destiny of humanity. And as long as, we have all of these extravagant entertainments and soap operas and reality TV shows and game shows and all manner of distraction, as they entitled this particular chapter, it keeps people from even knowing about the New World Order or who is behind it. And so, for the most part, most people don't even have any idea as to the war between the bloodlines, and that there is a physical bloodline, a lineage dedicated and organized in evil, so um, so strategic in their designs that they rule in Ponzi scheme with the creation of money and the subjection of wealth and control and power and ruling and holding all the seats of power of government from national to international level, that they are able to create and push forth an agenda which has been shown and related in the Bible with regard to the coming reign of the Antichrist, the beast system, the impunity of the rise of communism, even with China and Russia and other nations being brought to power, and how America and other nations are being destroyed from the inside out. That this has all been written about and put into place for a very long time. And yet, most people still have no idea. And the things that we're reading here are still new to them. And yet it is prophetic in that it spells out exactly what has happened and what will happen as we move forward into the future.
It's
Justin,
really
do you have
interesting
anything
when
with that?
as we've gone through all of these protocols, you really see the big web, the internet, how all of these things are working together for that big deception. Distraction is a key part of it. We just, every week that we've done this, we see so much of the agenda that has really just kept us in boxes. And my generation, especially, and I suppose maybe it was harder for them to get control in the older generations, as it says here. Soon we shall begin through the press to propose competitions in art and all kinds of sports and etc. Because back then I guess they didn't have as much organization skills, and maybe people were busy spending time with their family, and they were busy in the fields every day, and they didn't have all this free time. But we have so much of what we call free time, and we waste it with so many different things, right? And really these distractions is just another one of those things. Every one of these that I read brings me back to my childhood. It says, further we will distract them with amusements, games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. I don't know if anybody here ever saw the old show. It's called MTV Cribs. I remember growing up with that show, and it's always so fascinating, you get to see how the rich live, and they make it seem like that's the pinnacle of success, but all of this materialism is just pushed, and that's part of the distraction as well, is that people would get luxury, but it all really ties in together with how they really get you to give away all of the wealth and all of your earnings that you make throughout your life on stupid things, stupid material things that don't matter. You'll never need a 50-room house, and 5 stories with 15 sports cars. None of that is cool. Who cares? Maybe we're told that's what's cool, and maybe my generation definitely thinks that's what's cool, but it's so useless. It has no utility in eternity. Exactly. It's just a temporary thing that's going to rust again one day, or that termites are going to eat. Going back to pastimes and passions, definitely get that with what you touched on with like dramas, but you also get all these holidays that keep coming out. It's like every year I feel like there's another 30 holidays that are added to the calendar, every single year there's something that's being added or remembered or something, and it's just like constant distraction. And really they've just done such a thorough job of keeping people from waking up to what's outside of the box that they live in. They really made people comfortable inside of their boxes, and I think that it's difficult. I see the world in 2 categories. If you're have an inkling and want to know the truth, I feel like in category 1, you're just kind of, you want to know what's really out there, but you don't really search too hard, and then of course you fall into all the lies and the deception, right? And then for those hardcore truth seekers that are like, finally wake up to the NWO, and finally wake up to the fact that there is organized evil in the world. It's obvious when you research it, right? But then what Amos said, when there would be a famine for the word of the Most High, and of course that's what's true. There's a famine for truth. So you fall into those one of 2 categories. One, you're falling for the lies, or one where I put myself at least in this last generation, is like, I don't know what's true anymore. When I watch the news, I'm not going to side with one or the other. I just stay away from it. My identity is not on a political spectrum. My identity is solely founded on my faith in the Messiah and in our Savior, and that's the only thing that really matters. And I feel like the distractions, yes, they do take people away from recognizing these plans that the enemy has instilled throughout the generations, but I feel like the biggest part of it is to distract people from really seeking who they are and seeking, their creator, and the testimony that has been solidified through the ages of his life and death and resurrection.
Yes, absolutely. The meaning, of eternity, everlasting life through salvation in Christ. Yeah, that as long as they can keep people from ever entertaining that fact and that particular, uh, just the profundity of that thought and that imagining, um, they keep people lost and they keep people in a space where they fall with them, because as we talked about, the elect is but a few, and most people are caught up in the distractions of the world, and it's an unfortunate thing. But we are doing what we can to sound the warning, to blow the trumpet, and to help people, to help their families and others, their loved ones, to bring them to remembrance, to bring them to awareness, and to bring them to prioritize what should be real.
Right, and that's part of the what going back to what you said with it's not that we would condemn any sports players, right, or anybody
Right.
who's into art or anything like that. That's not the purpose, because even in those things you see a, a lot of witnessing going on, And
Yes.
that's the true
True
purpose. So
that.
whatever path you've taken, whether you're an engineer or a housekeeper, whatever, you can make an impact, and the impact that we want to make is for the kingdom, to sow seeds and to pray that those seeds will, bear fruit in people that will be worthy of salvation. I think that you can do that even if you're a sports player, right? I feel like you
Amen.
see a lot of
There's
those
a lot
people.
to.
So
Yeah.
I like watching soccer. I always grew up, playing sports. My whole life
Right.
I played sports. And of course, when I was in the military, everybody was always very competitive. And I feel like it's easy to get into the worldly competitive mindset that I have to win or else I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be very mad and only I matter, right? That's the mindset of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when I feel like there is a Christian competitor, a competitor uh, that can also be a believer, right? And that's one that
Yes.
you do your best, your opponent does their best. You're not praying that your team would win, you just pray that you can do your best, right? Because
Right.
there's that conundrum is that both sides of the team has somebody praying that they'll win, right? And I think that's a funny paradox, but as a real Christian, you should just pray that everybody's safe, pray that everybody has fun, a good exercise, and that you can
Mm-hmm.
do your best. And what happens in the end, winning or not, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is how you carry yourself as you compete. And definitely the main people are so toxic these days. They're very, very selfish and entitled, and of course, they're making like, I don't know, $500,000 a week for just showing up at practice and playing a game, which is absolutely insane. But there's also some people that do play those things that witness really, really hard. But in the same way, there are people that witness that you look at them and you can tell that they're plants, Roman
Yes.
Catholic plants. It's crazy. You see all of that. Like they said, where we just read, the very end, it says, we alone shall be offering them new direction for thought, of course, through such persons as will not be suspected of solidarity with us. There's people in all of these things that we watch and do and observe that are in solidarity with the whole Zionist and Freemason order of
Yeah.
building that.
It flashed the eye.
Yeah.
The Illuminati
Yeah, I feel like
pyramid.
it's not too hidden these days, but
Yeah.
even the people that you would never suspect are probably
Right.
could be in line. So it goes back to what we said earlier. You never know what you can believe through that, right?
Right.
You just put your faith
There's a.
in the Messiah. That's where it
Amen.
goes.
But we do see that in this day and age, it's it's almost like uh, like some kind of high status to flash the Illuminati eye, or to cover up one eye, or to do the pyramid and to look through it, and that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And how a lot of the sports stars, and they do all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, but yeah, there's that affiliation, that allegiance that a lot of musicians and sports stars are flashing. Um, like it's a brand almost to be part of the Illuminati, that whole
Yeah.
type of thing.
And all the art, in music,
Right.
in acting,
Right.
all of
Yes.
that you see, they're very, 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 very obviously part of
Right.
Freemasonry.
Right. Yes. Yes, there is a predominance with some of that going on. But let us continue. We are on part 4. The part played by the liberals, the utopian dreamers, will be finally played out when our government is acknowledged. Till such time, they will continue to do us good service. Therefore, we shall continue to direct their minds to all sorts of vain conceptions, of fantastic theories, new and apparently progressive. For have we not, with complete success, turned the brainless heads of the Goyim with progress, till there is not among the Goyim one mind able to perceive that under this word progress lies a departure from truth? In all cases where it is not a question of material inventions, like a fallacious idea, it serves to obscure truth, so that none may know it except us, the chosen of God, its guardian. And then there's commentary from one of the individuals that had put, and he just writes, which they are not, but are in reality the synagogue of Satan, as confirmed by Christ in Revelation 2:9. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Number 5. When we come into our kingdom, our orators will expound great problems which have turned humanity upside down, in order to bring it at the end under our beneficent rule. Who will ever suspect then that all these people were staged managed by us according to a political plan which no one has so much as guessed at in the course of many centuries? And so, again, those that are new to the protocols, that are new to the New World Order, to the idea of the synagogue of Satan, and also the brotherhood of the serpent, um, the whole brotherhood of the dragon, and all the secret societies that have fellowship with these particular mystery schools. It goes back even to the very fall of Lucifer, to the time when he declared in his heart that he would want to replace and be like the Most High, that he would exalt his throne above the stars and the clouds of God, that he would be like the Most High, and that rather than serving and being a part of the Morning Star administration, and being as the other angels, being messengers and servants unto the Most High, he proposed to take over and to overthrow Christ and to become um, the one in power, which is such a brash and arrogant thought, in that he was a created being and that he could even visualize or imagine overcoming his maker. It's just absolutely insane. But yet, that was the challenge that he proposed to a third of the angels that joined him in his rebellion, in his insurgency, and becoming legion. They have since that time become the adversaries of God and humanity. And, that's where we find ourselves now in life and situation, is that we are born into this world and we are to decide on, you know, uh, one of two masters who we are to serve. And the war, the grand chessboard, the great contest, is uh, this match between Christ and Satan as they play, and work and try to influence humanity for what will be everlasting life. It's going to be, condemnation or reward, and the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep. It's all, the whole thing was stage managed. All the kings and the rulers. How many times it's mentioned that the kings and the rulers, that they would, be in accord with Satan and doing the work of the New World Order. And certainly that is what we see playing out on the larger scale. So, care to comment?
Yeah, going back to paragraph 4 there, it was just really interesting. They said, we shall continue to direct their minds to all sorts of vain conceptions of fantastic theories, new and apparently progressive. I just think that it's
Mm-hmm.
so interesting that we live in this generation where people idolize Elon Musk, right?
Right.
Like everybody knows who Elon Musk is. Supposedly one of the greatest minds of the day, right? And then when you really like listen to him theorize all of these radical, like fantastic seeming ideas of colonizing Mars and things like this,
Right. Right.
you just really, I don't know. I just always get that picture of a Tesla flying in outer space and how he always says, you can tell it's real
Yeah.
because it looks so fake, and you're just like,
Right. Right.
I mean, they know
It's
the
so funny.
lies that they're pushing and all of these funny, just like science fiction realities that they're selling to people, like him and Neil deGrasse Tyson and some of these, the people that everybody looks up to. They are starting to contend with people who have brought them this simulation theory, this concept that everything that we observe in creation or in the universe we live in, it just all seems to be fine tuned. Even just the fact that there is a smallest bit, which we have as atoms, which are made up of neutrons and protons and electrons. So you have these like smallest building blocks, which they call pixels. It's like we live in a pixelated universe, where 99.99999% of everything is actually just empty space. Like everything just, there's just no way that all of this was created or not created. It just was created. We live in a simulation, is what they call it. So they say that, yes, we live in a simulation, but it's more likely that we live in a simulation of a simulation of a simulation. So,
Mm.
we'll never know who the simulator is, or who the programmer of this simulation
Right.
is. You'll never know
The
that
grand
because
architect.
you just live in one of many simulations within another simulation. And of course, with all that comes the moral question of determinism. Like, why do we have any consideration or care of what we do? Why do we have any morals at all? If we're
Right.
just a simulation and a simulation, like nothing matters.
Yeah,
And
nothing matters. What's the
so
point?
but it's just a fantastic idea. Like they say here, it's just this concept. When people who just use your brain, or I guess use the bit of wisdom that's been given to you, and just recognize, yeah, we live in a finely tuned creation, and your creator created you with a great purpose to know you. And he made it so beautifully and so wonderfully so that you would see his handiwork in it, and
Yes.
that you would draw near to him, and even so much as to have a relationship with
Right.
him. I mean and that's the real purpose of it all, is to have fellowship with your creator. That's why he created
Yes.
you, to have love between you and he, and between you and your fellow members of creation. It's, but they do so well at distracting us and creating all of these sci-fi fantasies that we can't see that, the greatest, the most interesting reality is what we're living in right now.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that this is the most beautiful imagining of any kind of simulation, the reality of what we are blessed to daily experience and waking to every new dream. And yet, so many people are just not in tune with it and seemingly, are um, just stupefied by everything else so that, they have no connection and no, they don't see the greater complexity and the design and the beauty that is daily unfolding. I mean, just in the way that the Most High has established the seasons from spring, summer, fall, and winter, and the transitions, even day and night, and how the night and the day are ruled over by the sun and the moon, and the subtle transitions of um, day into night and twilight and sunrise and sunset, and I mean, just all of that is just it's the greatest show on earth, and yet so many people just are disconnected from it, and especially our children. They only want to keep their faces and their computers and their iPads and phones and things of that nature, and yet daily around them is the greatest unfolding as far as the reality of what the creator established for all of us, and yet so many people don't find it interesting. It's so bizarre to me. But for those that are connected to and that uh, feel just the beauty and are touched by the profundity of each moment, what a great blessing it is to have a connection to uh, the creation and the creator in that manner. I could only wish that for everybody. And it seems like in the life of a poet that there's a great awakening, almost what people call nirvana, or the a moment of enlightenment where you wake up to just the beauty, and you have that kind of connection to the creator and the creation that nobody then can ever take away from you, and nobody can really understand it unless they've too experienced in similarity and would know what I'm talking about. But for those that just don't get it,
Yeah,
They're
I've,
just
I've
not going to
had
get it.
two, like, what I would consider like an outer body experience. I'm not saying I like astral projected or anything, but one, I
Hmm.
was in high school and I walked out to go to the bus. And as I walked outside, I looked up into the sky. I always had this issue when I was a kid. When I would look up into the sky, I would get really dizzy. And for some
Hmm.
reason, I just, at that moment, I was an atheist. I was a rebellious kid who, struggled
Yeah.
with a bunch of issues. And I just remember, for whatever reason, my mind wasn't in my body anymore. I just kind of like started taking off into
Uh,
the air, and I started seeing just how small I was. As I got
yeah.
further and
Yeah.
further away, I just remember thinking, wow, how
Right.
small I am. Just how, like, insignificant I must be.
Right.
And that kind of like sums up the atheism
Yeah.
worldview, right? And you go to school and you learn all
Right.
of these really cool things, but we credit the people who made the theories, or we credit the people who discovered the laws of physics, Newton's laws of physics,
Hmm.
but we never really credit the creator of everything, the one that
Right.
programmed everything perfectly, that calibrated the world
Yes.
to be, to have the perfect amount of oxygen in the atmosphere so that you can light a match and the world won't explode, but you can also breathe and get enough oxygen to sustain
Right.
a living body.
Right.
Like that balance, that ratio is perfect. But it didn't really hit me that there was a creator, that I had any significance in my life until I was uh, I was 18 when I came and lived with you.
Hmm.
And I remember just sitting out in your driveway, and I was reading, I don't know what was it, the Colburn
Over
Bible.
Bible. Yeah.
And when, our conversations every day just focusing on knowing who the Most High was, and just really it finally hit me, and I kind of had another outer body experience. Not that I left my body or anything, but I just all of a sudden was aware of this spiritual world that was around me, and I just
Yes.
I
Yes.
just felt like I had, it was like Neo, when he first
Right.
when he
Yes.
first like sees everything in numbers and in
Yes.
code.
Yes.
I felt like that. I was like,
Right.
whoa, I feel like that realization only comes from recognizing first your creator,
Right.
and then once you
Yes.
recognize your creator, you recognize you're a creation, and a
Yes.
creation that has a creator, that creator cares about his creation, that you're not just an insignificant pixel on earth.
Right.
You have such a great and grand purpose, that you are
Right.
loved so thoroughly. And then reading the
Yeah.
testimony of the Messiah, that he came into the world. And I remember the first time reading, the parable about the lost sheep, that,
Yeah.
what shepherd having 99 sheep,
Hmm.
or having 100 sheep, if one of them goes lost, which one wouldn't leave the 99 and go seek
Right.
out that which was lost? And I remember identifying so
Yes.
much as that lost sheep. Just how beloved are you? I mean, how
Right.
beloved am I? How beloved are we?
Right.
As creatures in the creation, and as creatures that were gifted with, the to be created in His image,
Right.
be able to have a mind that thinks, and be able to see His work in every step. That really is a gift, to be able to see a
Absolutely.
sunset with your eyes in the real world and think that
Yes.
it's more beautiful than,
Right.
CGI at the end of a
Yes.
movie.
Exactly. Right.
I'm not gonna lie, like, I've seen a lot of movies where the sunsets, I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful sunset. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but man, have you seen the real
The
thing?
real deal.
Check out
Exactly. Yeah.
every single evening, unless it's cloudy out, and then the clouds themselves are beautiful, right? To consider, because
Right.
you have
Yeah.
millions and millions of pounds of water hovering above you
Right.
that if it all fell, we would all be crushed, right? But it comes
Mhm.
down to these nice little water droplets. It's such a
Right.
wonderful creation to consider. And I'm so blessed
Yes.
to be able to see, the
Right.
creator and wherever we go and whatever we do, to know that this finely tuned universe we live within has been programmed so perfectly by a loving God who came into the world that he created and offered his life on the cross for the wages of all
Right.
of our sins, to
Right.
rectify us and to give us an opportunity to come back to him to have eternal life. That's just a great
Right.
blessing.
What a huge and incredible thought to imagine that there is a loving creator, that he made us in his image, and that he sent his son to die on the cross to redeem us and to restore us to our first estate. I mean, it's just, yeah, the awakenings that, we're talking about, and the being able to even talk about these things in higher level of comprehension and in a heightened sense of awareness. It's an incredible thing. And I just, again, for all the people that are listening, I could just hope that you are able to really deeply feel and comprehend the things that we're talking about, because if you can, then you're with us, and just a really beautiful uh sense of awareness, just like what Justin was talking about with that whole Neo moment of, understanding the matrix and the grand architect, and just, the deeper aspects of what those things are being spoken about in those movies. Because we're living the real deal, and there is a lot more to who we are, why we are, and what all this truly is about. All right, we will continue. We've got Protocol 14. Do you want me to read, son, or are you still up to
Yeah, I
reading?
think it would be more pleasant for the listeners if you would read it.
I'll continue then. All right. Protocol 14, the assault on religion. And interesting, the subtitle here says, the destruction of existing religions and the substitution of the religion of Moses, a new era of slavery, pornography encouraged in progressive countries. Number one, when we come into our kingdom, it will be undesirable for us that there should exist any other religion than ours, of the one God with whom our destiny is bound up by our position as the chosen people, and through whom our same destiny is united with the destinies of the world. We must therefore sweep away all other forms of belief. If this gives birth to the atheists whom we see today, it will not, being only a transitional stage, interfere with our views, but will serve as a warning for those generations which will hearken to our preaching of the religion of Moses, that by its stable and thoroughly elaborated system has brought all the peoples of the world into subjection to us. Therein, we shall emphasize its mystical right, on which, as we shall say, all its educative power is based. Then, at every possible opportunity, we shall publish articles in which we shall make comparisons between our beneficent rule and those of past ages. The blessings of tranquility through it be a tranquility forcibly brought about by centuries of agitation, will throw into higher relief the benefits to which we shall point. The errors of the Goyim governments will be depicted by us in the most vivid hues. We shall implant such an abhorrence of them that the peoples will prefer tranquility in a state of serfdom to those rights of vaunted freedom which have tortured humanity and exhausted the very sources of human existence. Sources which have been exploited by a mob of rascally adventurers who know not what they do. Useless changes of forms of government to which we instigated the Goyim when we were undermining their state structures will have so wearied the people by that time they will prefer to suffer anything under us rather than run the risk of enduring again all the same agitations and miseries that they have gone through. Number 2. At the same time, we shall not omit to
Let's
emphasize.
talk about that first one before the break a
Sure.
little bit. Just
All
the
right, go right
the
ahead.
fact again, that they talk about the one God. They talk about that they are the chosen people. They talk about that they have this religion of Moses. And we can't stress it enough or say it often enough in every show that that's not the case here. This is not chosen Israel. This is a bad seed that made their way
Right.
into Israel. And we talked about it earlier in Revelation 2:9 that was quoted up there in Revelation 3:9. That there are these people called the synagogue of Satan that claim to be Jews but are not.
Or not.
And we've talked about the
Yes.
history of this plenty of times. We don't need to hit that again. But it's just crazy to consider now how much power these people really do have, and they're really
Right.
coming into the limelight with this whole concept of after World War II, moving into the Promised Land. How they say
Yes.
they have that the chosen people have returned. They have the whole temple concept like ready to go. They have the Sanhedrin reestablished, and now we see. I don't know if you saw the reports that the Messiah is on the stage. I know we've heard this, from different rabbis many times, but you just hear that same thing, and that's what people are really waiting on. These people are saying that the Messiah is not the Messiah, but that the Messiah, the true Messiah, is someone to come, or someone that's
Right.
alive right now, but will be revealed. And you see that, that's going to be a big sign that this really is the end times. You only got a very
Right.
little while left before everything is totally destroyed.
Yeah,
I don't
there
know. Did you see that report?
no, but I did see something about the temple a libation ceremony being performed. Um and that the Levites and all of that they're going through the process of establishing the third temple now, and so these things are in place. But as you said, these are the Talmudist Jews. They're not the Torah observant, those that understand that Messiah did come and was fulfilled the stem of Jesse, the you know, the seed,
True
the
Passover
Messiah.
lamb. Yeah, they have the
Yeah, the
Noahide
true
laws,
Passover.
and
Right.
I feel like that's exactly what you're seeing talked about right here. People are going to be more than willing to live under the Noahide laws rather than Sharia law.
Right. We'll be right back, everyone, for a second hour.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
A little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and Praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. With our newest addition to the family, Ezra, we also added Enoch's Judgment of the Giants to this prophecy series. We're excited to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out sacredwordpublishing.com/collections/children's-store.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
situation on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I am your host, Zen Garcia, and this is Momentary Zen. Here on Revolution Radio, as we continue our introspection into the Illuminati Secret Covenant and protocols. And as always, I'm joined by my son, Justin James, as we go through this particular series, and we're making a lot of progress. I think there's like 22, 23 protocols. So we're maybe 2/3 of the way through, if that. But we'll continue, and we'll pick it up on part 14. Justin, did you want to comment on anything or finish up what you were talking about before we got to break? And I think it is significant that, we're specifying here and again showing that these are the Talmudist Jews, that, the synagogue of Satan and the serpent seed, the seed of the serpent, the sons of Belial, the children of perdition, and they are the Zionists, and they are those that are behind the New World Order, the secret societies that take the blood oaths and obligate themselves to bringing forth the NWO as agenda.
Yeah, it is important to make that distinction. Make sure you know who the synagogue of Satan is, because right here they say that they're going to use their mystic right. It says therein we shall emphasize its mystical right on which, as we shall say, all its educative power is based, and that they have the right to go into Israel, that they have the right to go in and kick all the people out that were there and persecute the poor people that are there, which you see now. I used to get mad when I would hear people call Israel an apartheid state, and that Israel didn't have a right to be there, and I would be like, no, I stand with Israel forever, And then I started really looking into it. I'm like, when I visited there and got to know the people, and
Right.
I'm not saying that the innocent people, that were raised reading the Talmud, that are Orthodox Jewish, I'm not saying that they're all, horrible people, but they're leaders. It's like in Freemasonry, right? We met this guy that was a Freemason on our vacation that we were talking to about all of what's going on with everything, right? And he didn't seem to know very much about organized evil and conspiracy theory and things like that. But he said he was a Mason. Like, oh, interesting. You don't know very much about that. And he said, yeah, I think I would know. My dad's a 33rd degree Mason, And you're like, oh, really? Well, you're never going to know what your dad knows. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
But I think it's the same thing over in Israel. The people that we met are very kind, very nice, but their leaders do some really bad things.
Yes.
And they have this twisted agenda. It's really like the blind leading the blind. So like if you really have a heart to know the truth, you'll be able to see through the Talmud. Like when we were in Israel, we met a now converted believer in the Messiah, but he was raised Orthodox Jewish, and he told us how he was studying to become a rabbi, and that's pretty standard for the boys there that want to study really hard in their religion, to just study and you go to be a rabbi and you're being taught, by other rabbis. And what he was being taught really didn't make much sense to him. When he just read the very first chapter of the word of Bereshit in Genesis, he said, what is the Spirit of God that's hovering over the waters? What do they mean by the Spirit of God? And, he started questioning things from Isaiah about the Messiah. And,
Right.
in Isaiah 53, it's just really, really simply laid out that the Messiah would be betrayed by his own people. They would crucify him. And in Psalm 22, but he started questioning things, and I feel like he's just a really great example that if you want to know the truth, if you really are reading for the truth, you're going to find it, as we're told in the New Testament, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened, ask and you will receive. He really was seeking it. I feel like there's just far and few between people that really do that really want to know the truth rather than just to know what people want them to know, just to get by, just to fit into the role that they've inherited in their life rather than to really look for the role that they were meant for by their creator. And the deception is big, the deception's harsh, but yeah, once again, the people that were there were really, a lot of them were very kind. Of course, there are a lot of radical Zionists there as well that spit on Christians and hate Christians. And of course, when you read through the Noahide laws and the things that are sitting and ready to be implemented around the world,
right,
that claims to be from, the religion of Moses, right? And for all the descendants of Noah, which would be every living human on earth right now, they brand Christians as worthy of being beheaded. We're considered blasphemers.
Yes,
but
heretics.
That's also it's prophesied, right, in the scriptures themselves.
Right.
It's just interesting to see it all playing out in reality, more so than any other time in history.
Yes, we are definitely in those times, and definitely, Christians, even in our own country, we are becoming the target. Patriots, Christians. The government has implemented a military tribunal system. The whole thing of the Patriot Act and the domestic terrorism and all that is focused against, God-loving, God-fearing Christian people that just want to separate themselves and live off the grid and grow their own food, and protect themselves with the right to bear arms, and that is in the political sense of the word, that is domestic terrorist. And so being a Christian is being labeled a domestic terrorist in this particular time, and by our government, who does not even want you to have the ability to grow your own food. They want you to stand in lines and get your government checks and follow the rules and do all that you need to get get what you need from grocery stores, and buy food that is unhealthy and unbeneficial and causes illness and disease, and that's just the way it is. But that's all in the protocols as well, as we've covered over time and place. But let us continue. All right. Part 2, Protocol 14. At the same time, we shall not omit to emphasize the historical mistakes of the Goy governments, which have tormented humanity for so many centuries by their lack of understanding of everything that constitutes the true good of humanity. In their chase after fantastic schemes of social blessings, and have never noticed that these schemes kept on producing a worse and never a better state of the universal relations which are the basis of human life. Part 3. The whole force of our principles and methods will lie in the fact that we shall present them and expound them as a splendid contrast to the dead and decomposed old order of things in social life. Part 4. Our philosophers will discuss all the shortcomings of the various beliefs of the Goyim, but no one will ever bring under discussion our faith from its true point of view, since this will be fully learned by none save ours, who will never dare to betray its secrets. Yeah, you were talking about the 33rd degree Masons and, all the people that are under them. They don't know what is being taught at the top. And Satan always rules from the top down. That's how he takes over organizations and imposes his rule and his whim over countries and states and organizations. It's always done that way. That's the modus operandi. Part 5. In countries known as progressive enlightened, we have created a senseless, filthy, abominable literature. For some time after our entrance to power, we shall continue to encourage its existence in order to provide a telling relief. By contrast to the speeches, the party program, which will be distributed from exalted quarters of ours, our wise men, trained to become leaders of the Goyim, will compose speeches, projects, memoirs, articles which will be used by us to influence the minds of the Goyim, directing them towards such understanding and forms of knowledge as have been determined by us. The whole idea of the intelligentsia, how they hoard knowledge and they teach what is the Illuminism to the chosen ones, and they keep all that knowledge for themselves. It's all really even kind of meaningless in that, like economics and all of that. It's scientism really, and it's not even based on reality and the truth of the world, or what even world, how the world really even works. But they teach this as their science to all those that follow in their fold. And then at the tops, they're, basically laughing at everybody that buys into those systems, that pays all this money to go all these years to these colleges to get these paperback degrees, and they're meaningless. It just shows, an obligation and a dedication to learn the things that are put out by them. And yet they at the top know that those things are really just nonsensical and meaningless and based on, things that aren't even real. But, that's, again, the way that they laugh at and control the masses, getting us to believe things that don't even really make sense.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how they mention liberal, progressive mentalities here, right? They, of course, if you claim to be a follower of Torah, right, you can't identify as a liberal in any sense. in my mind at least, but especially here, they're talking about how they've created this senseless, filthy, abominable literature, which, we all know what
Uh-huh.
this is. I don't know if you saw, there was a whistleblower that came out that said the FBI isn't investigating child porn use any longer. They have other stuff to take care of.
Oh
And
my gosh,
that
really?
your guest tomorrow night, he used to work around here in the Atlanta,
Yeah,
Georgia area to help victims of sex trafficking to to break free from that lifestyle, to introduce them to the
right.
gospel and to find freedom. And they would work with private detectives to uncover where these rings were coming from, and he actually ended up he stopped doing that because he said the government just really doesn't care. The government
Yeah.
is really benefiting from these trades.
Uh,
How unfortunate is that
yes.
you have an
Yes.
active member of society that's trying to do some good to help free slaves, and you learn that that's not in the best interest of those who are in rulership. It's
Right.
not very
Yeah,
surprising.
it's unfortunate because when you learn that really the elitists are involved in pedophilia and the sex trafficking and uh, of women and children and victims worldwide and have been for a very long time. Um, yeah, it's not in their interest to go after themselves, and so that's why there's always been, even at the highest levels, a protection. Like with the Catholic Church and all the priests that have been involved in such behaviors, and how there's been millions and billions of dollars paid out to victims, um, to stay silent and to keep their story out of the limelight. And so for people to try to deny that this kind of thing is taking place, it can only be explained when you know about the things that we're talking about, when you understand that the elites are truly involved in, and that they teach and they normalize such behaviors. I mean, people can just read Alice Bailey's 10-point plan to install and implement the New World Order, and how that would be a focus on the destruction of the faith, the Christian ways of the people that grew up in older times, and how liberalism and um, you know civil liberties and civil rights would be placed above um, the rights of the masses and to be protected, and children to be protected, and how abomination like pedophilia and bestiality, these things would be normalized. And this was written back in the 60s, and we're in the age where it's all in the forefront. It's all now in place. Like the LGBTQ and all that is, that's being supported by the whole left and part of the liberal agenda. It's just insane.
Yeah,
But
this was a really short protocol, and of course, it was titled "The Assault on Religion." But interesting that they still claim here that they have the one faith, and that nobody knows exactly what it is. That's what they think, right? But we know that they worship the enemy. They worship
right,
the leader of the fallen angels. But it's interesting
yes,
that they say our philosophers will discuss all the shortcomings of the various beliefs of the Goyim. I mean, that
right.
sounds like a really interesting college class. Like, I would probably sit through that, and
Hmm.
'cause I feel like that was my life's journey. Not just
right,
not looking for the shortcomings, but discovering all the shortcomings of the various
uh-huh,
religions from around the world. But really, it's not
right,
shortcomings. They just all have their own little picture, and where they have their own little puzzle piece of the big puzzle, you know.
right,
And really, when you research the scriptures, the Bible, really see how that big picture fits together and how
right,
the big picture points to Christ and points to salvation through him and points to the
right,
love of the Father, of the Creator for all of his creation, but also lets you know that there is a very real enemy and that there are
yes,
ancient aliens, you know, or fallen
yes,
angels that came from heaven to the
right,
earth and who established this evil order of deception. So interesting to see this, how their offspring are guiding mankind. I think it's also
right,
interesting. It says, "Our wise men trained to become leaders of the Goyim will compose speeches, projects, memoirs, articles, which will be used by us to influence the minds of the Goyim." I mean, I just think of like Stephen Hawking, you know, people of the past, George Washington, Lincoln. You know, they have all these sayings that are really like religions are built off of some of the things they say. You know, they're read in every school, and it was Nietzsche that said, I don't remember how long ago, that God is dead. And you think
right,
these are the people that my generation looks up to. Oh, Nietzsche's dead now, you know. But
uh-huh,
yeah, interesting
yes,
that they claim to have the knowledge, right? They claim to have the one truth, and that everything that the Goyim do is just basically a reflection of what they allow us to know, you know.
hmm,
Thankfully, we know
yeah,
the
I think,
truth because the Creator Himself said that He would preserve His testimony throughout the ages, and He has done so.
right, absolutely. And he's revealed that truth to his prophets and for the rest of us. But I think what another thing that you brought forth that's very important is that people understand just to what degree the influence of the fallen angels over many cultures and religions, how that has set a historical precedence for people to be raised in deception, and also that in their worship, abominations such as, victim and child sacrifice, cannibalism, the drinking of blood, that these kind of things have been also normalized. And people don't understand that, and yet there is this pervading ever since the beginning, the enmity, the war between the bloodlines. It has played out so that the world has been split along these lines, and that most of them have been raised in cultures where the fallen angels have been their gods. And that's something that is not fully still understood. Because if it would, and if it was, then people would know that, the ancient aliens that are coming on the scene now, that this is just the further, the next episode in what is the false paradigm of, the worship of people um, worshiping the false gods and goddesses. And so, but it's going to be the next, a further elongating of that whole scenario. The ancient serpent deceiving the whole world.
Yeah, if you just look back at history, you can see that influence of the polytheistic religions, of the religions that had human sacrifice, that had all these very weird rituals. I mean, you just look to the east through Hinduism, and you see how influential that was. It literally reached all the way eastward. Hinduism went all the way to Japan,
Yes,
right?
right.
And it took that form of Buddhism, but really Buddhism is just another front for the Hindu gods and idol worship again.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the West, you have that same thing coming from Egypt, really, and the mixture with the Greek and the Roman gods going all the way over.
Yes.
Changing their guise to Roman Catholicism, but really the same leadership, the same ancient worship of Lucifer.
Right. And even, in South America, we had all the worship of the feathered serpent. The temples and the sacrifice, the ripping the still beating hearts out of people and offering to the gods and goddesses.
Yeah, I was watching a Mayan documentary and out of Guatemala and the jungles over there, and they found this big luxurious building that they called it was like the temple of the serpent or whatever, the temple of the feathered serpent. And you're like, it's crazy. They had literal serpent worshippers over there. Like, what serpent do you think that they were worshiping?
Right.
I mean, it all roots back to the garden.
Right.
But it's crazy that they had that much power and influence over literally every continent and over every people.
Right.
Crazy. I mean, that's how it was. And that's why eventually the whole world was destroyed and only Noah was saved, right, with his children and their wives. Yes. But then the same thing happened, and then only Abraham was chosen out of the whole world to bring forth the seed of the Messiah and to receive that promise. Because the rest of the world, the entire world, had been corrupted by the fallen angels and by that doctrine of Ham or Canaan that you really do see through Egypt and through India and all right there, the whole Mesopotamian area. You see fallen angel worship. And you even see the wars between the different sects of fallen angel worshippers, which that's a always very interesting concept to study that I know you and Gary have discussed at length with the wars between the Nephilim.
Right. Yeah, that's a very important aspect of history and prehistory to understand. But let us continue with Protocol 15. Ruthless suppression. Simultaneous world revolution, the purpose and direction of Masonry, the chosen people, and the dogmatic right of the strong, and the king of Israel. Which again, their king is the king despot that they talk about. So very often the man of sin to be revealed. All right. When we at last definitely come into our kingdom by the aid of coup d'etat, prepared everywhere for one and the same day, after being definitely acknowledged, and not a little time will pass before that comes about, perhaps even a whole century, we shall make it our task to see that against us such things as plots shall no longer exist. With this purpose, we shall slay without mercy all who take arms in hand to oppose our coming into our kingdom. Every kind of new institution of anything, like a secret society, will also be punished with death. Those of them which are now in existence are known to us. They serve us and have served us. We shall disband and send them into exile to continents far removed from Europe. In this way, we shall proceed with those Goy Masons who know too much, such of these as we may, for some reason, spare, will be kept in constant fear of exile. We shall promulgate a law making all former members of secret societies liable to exile from Europe as the center of rule. And so we see here that when they come into their kingdom, when they establish their beast system, when they bring forth their king despot, then they will no longer tolerate the secret societies and the mystery schools and those things which allowed them to establish their power and to come into their kingdom, and that they will then persecute and bring to terror those that had served them, because they are expendable in the same manner that you see, the CIA and all these alphabet agencies that have all these secret agents serving them and performing their assassinations and killing off leaders or people that are a threat to their organizations. It's the same thing. They think of all these individuals as being expendable to the greater good, in the same manner that they spoke about the need for Christ to die one instead of entire nation during the conspiracy to bring forth his murder. And so, really, those of you that are in these secret societies and that are serving the New World Order and that think you're in some way going to be glamorized and held in, a high regard, this is the truth of what they think about you. You're nothing more than an expendable number in their process and the way that they do things. All right, continuing. Number 2. Resolutions of our government will be final and without appeal. Number 3. In the Goy societies in which we have planted and deeply rooted discord and Protestantism, the only possible way of restoring order is to employ merciless measures that prove the direct force of authority. No regard must be paid to the victims who fall. They suffer for the well-being of the future. The attainment of that well-being, even at the expense of sacrifices, is the duty of any kind of government that acknowledges as justification for its existence not only its privileges, but also its obligations. The principal guarantee of stability of rule is to confirm the aureole of power. And this aureole is attained only by such a majestic inflexibility of might as shall carry on its face the emblems of inviolability from mystical causes, from the choice of God. Such was, until recent times, the Russian autocracy, the one and only serious foe we had in the world, without counting the papacy. Bear in mind the example that when Italy, drenched with blood, never touched a hair of the head of Sulla, who had poured forth that blood. Sulla enjoyed an apotheosis for his might in him, but his intrepid return to Italy ringed him round with inviolability. The people do not lay a finger on him who hypnotizes them by his daring and strength of mind. This reminds me, I saw last night something about the 10 most evil rulers and people, and included, people like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and Pol Pot and individuals like that, Mao Zedong, people that slaughtered in the name of communism or, for fascism or Nazism, whatever, slaughtered all those that opposed them, all the dissident voices, all the political prisoners, the people, revolutionaries, people that were true believers in the common good. They would slaughter the masses and subject them to cruel penalties, concentration camps, starvation. And it talked about how they never paid for their crimes. Many of them lived until, old age, even though later, very much later in their lives, they would in some exemplary manner be seemingly brought to justice, but none of them actually ever paid for with their life or in any kind of grand manner the crimes that they committed in slaughtering innocents, millions and millions of people. And but we know that there will be a day, and when they succumb to death, that there is justice to pay. And thank God for that justice. And thank God for a compassionate, loving, and ruling God that does take such things into consideration.
Yeah, of course. Of course, there will be justice.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting here that we see the warring, beast systems, right? Because we know in Scripture, of course, as we went through Revelation and Daniel and in all of these end time studies with the Great Commission 3, you always see various beasts. In Revelation and in Daniel's prophecies, you see not just the one world system that will eventually come to take place, but you see multiples, right? And even in the end, you see that there are 3 unclean mouths, or 3 unclean spirits like frogs that come out of the mouths of the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon. We always try to identify, who could they be? So here you see the Zionists are claiming that the Russian autocracy was one of their greatest foes, right? And then you also see that they count the papacy as one of their greatest foes. So I think that's interesting. I think we're at a stage now where maybe you still see that same enmity between Russia and the Western world, right? But as far as the papacy, I don't know. I see them as weak now. Even they're kind of just like puppets for whatever the Western world wants. Whereas once they used to direct everything that happened in the Western world, right? Now they're just kind of like, we accept everyone, we accept all things.
Mm-hmm.
We have to coexist with everyone. I guess they've become pushovers, or they've adapted
figureheads.
This whole that they're just being utilized by this Zionist. But I think that they also support Israel now, like rebuilding their temple and
they do.
So I'm curious if
without a doubt,
if Israel's Messiah the false Messiah were to come onto the stage, would the Pope be like, "Oh, I'm no longer the vicar of Christ. This man is." I wonder if there would be a war there.
Uh-huh.
They probably don't have enough power left to make that war, but they do have quite a large following, right? And they have a lot of money.
Right. Yes. Oh, and they own a lot of territory with regard to, those that truly own the properties of the world. Queen Elizabeth, she owns like 1/6 of all the world's landmass. And the papacy is right up there with regard to title and ownership. They own a lot of land and property and control a lot of wealth as well. But yeah, I think it's like because the papacy too, they worship Satan, Lucifer in the same manner. And so I could see like the Pope being like the false prophet and giving his power over to the beast.
Yeah, that's
in
interesting.
in similarity to what we see in scripture. And so I think they're all connected in some kind of secret society manner, and they're all working behind the scenes to bring forth this ancient alien.
That's a really interesting interpretation that you said. It's the dragon that gives its power to the beast, right? If the Pope were to concede his power and influence over to the false Messiah of the synagogue of Satan, that is an interesting concept to consider on how prophecy could be fulfilled.
Oh, and immediately you'd have all those people, 15 billion people, right, accepting, that would be like accept the mark of the beast, bend your knee to, this false king despot, I mean, yeah, for real.
And then true Christians, of course, would be thrown under the bus.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let us try to make it through this one. Number 4. Meantime, however, until we come into our kingdom, we shall act in the contrary way. We shall create and multiply free Masonic lodges in all the countries of the world, absorb into them all who may become or who are prominent in public activity. For these lodges, we shall find our principal intelligence office and means of influence. All these lodges we shall bring under one central administration, known to us alone, and to all others absolutely unknown, which will be composed of our learned elders. The lodges will have their representatives who will serve to screen the above mentioned administration of Masonry, and from whom will issue the watchword and program. In these lodges we shall tie together the knot which binds together all revolutionary and liberal elements. Their composition will be made up of all strata of society. The most secret political plots will be known to us and fall under our guiding hands on the very day of their conception. Among the members of these lodges will be almost all the agents of international and national police, since their service is for us irreplaceable, in the respect that the police is in a position not only to use its own particular measures with the unsubordinate, but also to screen our activities and provide pretexts for discontents, etc. The class of people who most willingly enter into secret societies are those who live by their wits, careerists, and in general, people, mostly light-minded, with whom we shall have no difficulty in dealing and in using to wind up the mechanism of the machine devised by us. If this world grows agitated, the meaning of that will be that which we will have to stir up in order to break up its too great solidarity. But if there should arise in its midst a plot, then at the head of that plot will be no other than one of our most trusted servants. It is natural that we and no others should lead Masonic activities, for we know whither we are leading. We know the final goal of every form of activity, whereas the Goyim have knowledge of nothing, not even of the immediate effect of action they put before themselves. Usually, the momentary reckoning of the satisfaction of their self-opinion in the accomplishment of their thought, without even remarking that the very conception never belonged to their initiative, but to our instigation of their thought. Number 6, the Goyim enter the lodges out of curiosity, or in the hope by their means to get a nibble at the public pie. And some of them in order to obtain a hearing before the public for their impracticable and groundless fantasies. They thirst for the emotion of success and applause, of which we are remarkably generous. And the reason why we give them this success is to make use of the high conceit of themselves to which it gives birth. For that insensibly disposes them to assimilate our suggestions without being on their guard against them, in the fullness of their confidence that is in their own infallibility, which is giving utterance to their own thoughts, and that it is impossible for them to borrow those of others. You cannot imagine to what extent the wisest of the Goyim can be brought to a state of unconscious naivety in the presence of this condition of high conceit of themselves. And at the same time, how easy it is to take the heart out of them by the slightest ill success, though it be nothing more than the stoppage of the applause they had, and to reduce them to a slavish submission for the sake of winning a renewal of success. By so much as ours disregard success, if only they can carry through their plans, by so much the Goyim are willing to sacrifice any plans only to have success. This psychology of theirs materially facilitates for us the task of setting them in the required direction. These tigers in appearance have the souls of sheep, and the wind blows freely through their heads. We have set them on the hobby horse of an idea about the absorption of individuality by the symbolic unit of collectivism. They have never yet, and they never will, have the sense of reflect that this hobby horse is a manifest violation of the most important law of nature, which has established from the very creation of the world, one unit unlike another, and precisely for the purpose of instituting individuality. Number 7. If we have been able to bring them to such a pitch of stupid blindness, is it not a proof, and an amazingly clear proof, of the degree to which the mind of the Goyim is underdeveloped in comparison with our mind? This it is mainly which guarantees our success. Number 8. And how far-seeing were our learned elders in ancient times when they said that to attain a serious end, it behooves not to stop at any means or to count the victims sacrificed for the sake of that end. We have not counted the victims of the seed of the Goy cattle, though we have sacrificed many of our own. But for that we have now already given them such a position on the earth as they could not even have dreamed of. The comparatively small numbers of the victims from the number of ours have preserved our nationality from destruction. Number 9. Death is the inevitable end for all. It is better to bring that end nearer to those who hinder our affairs than to ourselves. To the founders of this affair, we execute Masons in such wise that none save the Brotherhood can ever have a suspicion of it. Not even the victims themselves of our death sentence. They all die when required, as if from a normal kind of illness. Knowing this, even the Brotherhood in its turn dare not protest. By such methods we have plucked out of the midst of Masonry the very root of protest against our disposition. While preaching liberalism to the Goy, we at the same time keep our own people and our agents in a state of unquestioning submission. Number 10. Under our influence, the execution of the laws of the Goyim has been reduced to a minimum. The prestige of the law has been exploded by the liberal interpretations introduced into this sphere. In the most important and fundamental affairs and questions, judges decide as we dictate to them. See matters in the light wherewith we enfold them for the administration of the Goyim. Of course, through persons who are our tools, though we do not appear to have anything in common with them, by newspaper opinion or by other means. And we're going to stop it right there. But just to show you that even their own are expendable, and they will slaughter and sacrifice the people of their own brotherhood if it serves the greater good of what is the agenda of the New World Order. They're ruthless, callous, merciless, and they care not for life. They hold no sanctity, no allegiance, no dedication to anybody other than, Satan and the agenda of the New World Order. But we've arrived at the end. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Justin, it was always a pleasure to have you on with me, son. I hope that you get better and the rest of the family does as well.
Thank you. All right. Shalom, everyone. Have a great night. Blessings.
Good night. Shalom all. Be blessed.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.